Yeah, don't give us that much
He went to Cambridge.
Okay. Yes. Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome to McNally Jackson. I'm Michaela. I'm the director of programming here, and we are so thrilled to have Laurie and Vince here with us tonight. These books are so timely and just very exciting. So thank you so much for all coming out. Before I make some introductions and a bit of housekeeping, we will have time for questions at the end, so do feel free to ask away. And Laurie, I'm sure, I haven't asked, we'll sign some books after. If anyone would like their copy signed downstairs in our cafe, which is going to stay open for wine and beer and coffee and anything you like until 9. So just stick around and join us for a drink. So by way of introduction, streaming now, Postcards from the Thing That Is Happening is a collection of hybrid feminist narratives that perfectly captures the many paradoxes of the COVID-19 pandemic, contrasting the seemingly never-ending public catastrophes we experience as a collective with the isolated, often mundane lives we carried out in private. We're so thrilled to have Laurie here, launching this wonderful book, and we're so thrilled to have her here with Vince Passaro, whose first novel, 2002's Violence, Nudity, Adult Content, was a provocative book that explored the darkest human emotions and the traumas of mental illness, sexual assault, and murder. Now, 22 years later, Passaro is back with his follow-up, Crazy Sorrow, a novel that is equally explosive and more grand in scope. We are so excited to have him here. Laurie Stone is the author of 5 books, most recently streaming now. Postcards from the Thing That's Happening. Everything Personal, Notes on Now, and My Life as an Animal, Stories. She was a longtime writer for The Village Voice, theatre critic for The Nation, and critic at large on Fresh Air. She won the Nona Balakian Prize in Excellence in Criticism from the National Book Critics Circle and 2 grants from the New York Foundation of the Arts. She's published numerous stories in publications such as N+1, Waxwing, Tin House, Evergreen Review, Electric Lit, Fence, Open City, and many others. We are so excited to have you here in conversation. I'm going to pass over to you guys.
Thank you. Are you going to start out with a little reading?
Should I?
I think you should,
All right,
so that we can launch, as it were.
Now
You have so much more energy.
I have energy because, never mind. So I made little things on these, and then I had wine. Okay, I think we're starting with this one. So I have 4 little sections, and they're all at the back. I don't know why, but anyway. I do 4 kinds of writing, and they are interspersed and woven and like tiles and collages, etc. And one is fiction, one is memoir. So there's a lot of dramatic narrative that I do. I tell stories, and I am a critic as well. I like to watch things and look at things and also tell stories about my experience with them. So I'm not really evaluating things in a conventional sense. And I am always looking at the sexual politics of any frame, anywhere in the world, for any reason. It could just be a mouse and a piece of cheese, it doesn't matter. I will find a story to tell about whatever. Anyway, so those are the 4 things that I do, and it's a collage, this book. And so this starts with some hate watching. So hate watching, I feel like hate watching is a job that no one designated for me, but I can't stop it because it's, especially if it's about like sexual politics or gender or what the fuck ever. So this was okay. So this is the beginning. I am hate watching scenes from a marriage, not the Bergman. This was like some remade thing by Israeli writer-director Haggai Levy. Episode 4 brought back memories of the time we all slept with Orthodox Jewish men, and as soon as the sex was over, the men got up and washed off their dicks because pussy juice is unclean. We thought it was so sexy. It brought back memories of the time we slept with men and thought the sex was good, and afterward they got dressed and said they were planning to have a baby with someone else. Like, you couldn't have mentioned that before the sex. We thought that was so macho, and we pined ever after for the guy. It brought back memories of fucking doggy style, so the dick was ramming against her cervix and it really hurt, and there was no clitoral contact, and it was impossible to come unless you were so hot for any kind of sex in any position you could think yourself off. This was supposed to be the hottest of hot sex positions. It said so in all the movies and all the TV shows, and we knew it was the worst, but hey, who are we to argue? It brought back memories of the time the guy was a dick in all the ways and was still the hero of the story for taking care of his own child, and the one who was done to in the mind of the writers and directors because the guy was them. And who were we to disagree? I wrote this on Facebook and had to explain to more than one reader I was being sarcastic and conjuring a collective female experience I was making up. I have never had sex with an Orthodox Jewish who washed off his dick, or any kind, but never mind, but back to the book. Who washed off his dick like the character does on the show. I had to say this, and also, why don't you stab me through the heart for making me explain comedy? You need a seat.
Excuse me?
You need a seat.
No, I'm just,
You're just
I'm
lurking.
okay here.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
And so much of it's great. You know, when I first,
Good opener.
yeah, I responded, Laurie and I met on Facebook, and I responded to something you wrote on Facebook. And what I responded was that there was this underlying eroticism to everything she was writing, and it wasn't stuff about sex. It was a kind of worldview and a pattern of language and a underlying energy to the language and the work and to the vision. And it's so, it's not only is it rare, but it's ever rarer, if you know.
What to find? To find sex and language?
To find sex publicly discussed anywhere. I mean, but to find it imbued, you know, throughout a vision of the world, you know. And I think I was very sensitive to that because I got in some trouble about it with my own book. And anyway, you responded to that because I don't think people were. I think people now are not. They're just. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I don't know. Reagan? Was it to start with Reagan?
No, the hall monitors took over. The hall monitors took over is what I said.
The hall monitors.
The hall monitors.
Yeah.
The whole monitors started making big money.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really horrifying. But that piece is a perfect example. Like then you had to explain.
Yes.
I didn't really sleep with those guys. And
Yeah.
you know,
I constantly have to no, you made it up. It's language. It's just words, right? Yeah.
yeah. The when I was for a brutal period in my life, I actually had a real job, and I had to hire people, and the absolute line was, if you suspect they don't have a sense of humor, they don't have a sense of humor, and you don't hire them. Period. I don't care about how efficient they are. I don't care how great they are. I don't care. You don't hire them. And if you suspect they're insane, they're insane, and you don't hire them. That was it. You know, those are my two. You know, absolute. But there's a lot of that out there. A lot. So it was bracing to hear. I was reading the book today. I read the book when you sent it to me, and I loved it a lot, and that's how this ended up happening. And I was rereading the book yesterday and today, and I came upon this amazing section. It's part 2. I don't think I wrote down the page numbers correctly. Yes, it's called 7 Locations.
Oh yeah.
Elsewhere, Elsewhen.
Elsewhere, elsewhere.
7 locations. It starts in London, England, 1995. So it proceeds along no notable narrative structure. It goes 1995, 2002, Southampton, Long Island.
Do you want to know how that piece happened?
When unfinished.
Okay.
then
It's a
you.
really funny story.
Well, this would be the interesting thing, because there's Ground Zero 2001, and there's Charles Street, May 1970, and a little unpleasant scene with a man. There's the PATH train, New Jersey, April 2008, and then it's Dachau,
Yeah.
1995.
That was the problem.
And interestingly enough, everyone I've ever known who visited Dachau had the same experience of like absolute denial among the Germans.
Oh yeah.
You know, of like having trouble finding the place. Of, you know, I mean, it's just the same experience. I mean, I don't know how to know it. When you were there in 1995, and between, you know, in the 90s, I knew a number of people who went.
No, it was later, but never mind. It's okay. Like,
Well, it says July 95.
does it? Oh, okay.
Not to correct you.
No, I take it. Yeah. It's surprising.
We rode to camp, and we left the camp and rode back to Munich, 12 miles or so. We had coffee and ice cream at a cafe. Then we walked up a hill to the old quarter through winding, picturesque streets lined with expensive clothing shops and restaurants. That night we went out with friends who served champagne. Everyone drinks champagne in Munich. A few nights later, at another dinner, my friend described our trip to Dachau, and the woman at the table who was drunk and spoke in German I could more or less understand, especially the word Juden, said, or was it Juden? Juden. Said that in addition to the Germans, many other people in Europe and America had wanted to see the power of Jewish financiers destroyed. My friend pointed out to the drunk woman that she was basically repeating Nazi propaganda, and I said in English that the Jews who had been killed were largely not wealthy. I could see the woman was somewhere else. She felt stained by what had happened to the Jews in her country, and no matter what she did, she could not wash it off. Then there's the next little section that ends this entire structure. Christie's, New York City, May 2006. I was catering at a small gallery, passing drinks. On display was a bisected sheep in a plexiglass case made by
David Hurst.
and it looked the way everyone's life is going to go. The station where we picked up drinks was behind a black curtain. The way time works in catering, you forget about death. So I'm looking at this section, and that's the end of the section, and it goes from there to there. I'm thinking there's a structure here, and I can't figure out what it is, but I know it's there. I can feel it. And I was remembering seeing a film about Frank Gehry here,
I love that film.
with directed by what's his name, who died since then.
It's a documentary about Gary,
Yeah.
right? I only saw one. I don't know if it's the same one.
And Gehry would sometimes take a piece of brown paper or aluminum foil, wherever you want, or white paper, and he'd go like this, and crumple it up, and throw it on the floor, and then, or on the table. And then he'd look at it, and then he'd turn it around, and then he'd turn it this way, and then he'd push a little at it, like this. And then he would somehow get a shape out of it. And he famously said once, you think classicism is beautiful. I say fish is beautiful. And I had that very strong feeling from this section that you had a shape and you knew what it was. Although you may not have even have consciously known what it was, but this is what it was, and it was very gratifying to look at.
Yeah, I'm glad that you feel that way. Do you know how it happened?
I'm sorry.
You know.
I
how
do.
It happened. Okay, I had a catering story, not that catering story. There's another catering story, and I had Dachau, and I thought, no, not even you can make like a diptych of those two. Just cannot be done. So I thought, well, what do they have in common? Oh, well, they're locations. So think of some other places you've been. I never think about places I've been as locations. I don't think about location. I don't think about setting as a strong, kind of prompt for something that I would write. It's more likely going to be an image or someone's dialogue. But anyway, but it was location. And I just started to think about other places that I could join these two disparate spaces together with. And then the ordering is always the issue. So that's something that, it wasn't random. It's nothing.
No, it's not random at all.
It's not random,
Tell
but
us that.
the way to order for me is music. It's not logic. It's not even, it isn't even a kind of image-based through line. It's not, definitely not didactic. I'm not trying to, it isn't, it's not a,
But there's
it
an
isn't
architecture,
teleological.
there's a shape.
There is, but it's it's the shape of something musical. It's the shape of something like, in this case, it would be, partitas or something, because they're just little parts of things that somehow sound like something, and then you start to change. You start to touch them a little bit, as they start gravitating towards each other. You tune them a little bit. And anyway, that's how that worked.
Well, that's the great thing about when you get into the book, as you say, is a collage.
The whole thing
and
is a
it's
collage,
postcards
right?
and all this. But actually, when you get into it, and this is what I found so galvanizing about it, when you get into it, this is serious work. And you may not have treated it as such all the time, or you may not have wanted to think of it as such, but it's a serious work. And when you get into that section, for instance, you are contending with a creative consciousness, an artistic consciousness that is doing something, and it's hard to understand what it's doing.
Yeah.
And
Good.
yeah, exactly. And you struggle to understand what it's doing, and of course the struggle to understand what it's doing bonds you to it in a way that an easy understanding would not.
That's so gratifying to hear. It's really thrilling. It's lovely. I couldn't ask for anything more than that. It's just what I feel like what I only want is to stir feeling in the reader. That's it. But it's always, how do you do it? I kind of know a lot of ways to make sure it won't happen. So I've got a checklist, like, oh, you did that one. No, that has to come out. So there's that. But that's terrible. That's incredibly gratifying. Jennifer Baumgartner, who's here, is the editor of this book and a publisher of Dottir Press. And I just wrote incredibly embarrassing to her, no doubt, encomia, like that praising of you that I wrote.
No, I love it when people praise me, but thank you.
I hate that.
Yeah, praise.
I got some praise yesterday, and I got some other praise, and I was like, oh, enough for it.
No, but it's so thrilling to be working, with a feminist, at a feminist press, and also to be writing for this wonderful review that Jennifer created called Lieber, and but it was stuff, right? Because I've been writing these collage pieces, so we write pieces. So pieces are, a bunch of pieces does not make a book. So then you have to make music out of, the way that you make music within a smaller piece, which is the partitas or the, or nocturne or whatever. So we made something in 4 movements or whatever, something. I wouldn't say it's a symphony, definitely not, but it's certainly. We talked about how to move it, how to create movement in it, without teleology. So there was no plot themed. She doesn't learn anything, God forbid, or change, God forbid. That could never happen to me, never. So it doesn't have I used to be and now I'm not, or I did this thing and you can too. It couldn't have any of those kind of frameworks to it. So what's left? A bunch of stuff that that's interesting. That language can produce, but still, it's not enough for it to be. So we talked, and and we. We potchked and we changed and we saw what happened if we put that thing there. And then she did a menu. It was like I said, well, what do you want? She said, I'll order some stuff from you. And I said, you can order what you want. She said, I want a little more catering and I want a little more of that. And it was really like a good menu sort of situation. And I said, I can do that. I can write you a new catering piece. I said, and because I had written a lot about it and it wasn't as good as what's in this book. So, that conversation you have with a brilliant feminist who we almost never talk. We talk feminist, but we don't talk about feminism because we already talk feminist, which means that the entire actual world as it exists to us, or to me anyway, is bizarro world, and our smaller conversation is the real world. And the world of my books, is, to me at least, where I talk just, as I want to. But it's wonderfully collaborative to have that. And the other piece of the collaboration is with Richard, who is the man I live with in the book. and it's all collaborative, and this is collaborative. And I do a workshop with people. It's super collaborative, and it's.
What's the workshop?
The workshop is more like a lab. People come in and they bring a piece, a very short piece of writing. We're very focused on the sentence.
Any genre restriction?
Any genre, no. And mostly a lot of times people like Gordon, has been a composer. They're not necessarily writers as their primary art form. We have visual artists, we have other kinds of artists who come in. And then we all write together in real time, not in real space anymore, because it's mostly on Zoom, to a prompt. But it doesn't have to be a prompt that the workshop devises. It can be a prompt that you've decided you were going to wait to write about. And then everybody reads their pieces in slam fashion. And they're always better than the pieces that the people bring in, because we've already cross-pollinated with each other, and everybody's like, ooh, that sounds like a good idea. I'll try that in my write. And it's great.
I like that cockroaches coming out from under the broiler.
Yeah. But anyway, Richard and I devised this kind of technique, and the book's, and he's a major character, certainly. So it's very much a collaboration of our writing practice, wouldn't you say?
Well, it comes from that writing practice, but we
Yes.
started when we got together.
Yeah, we got together, we started writing together. It was, Yeah.
That's wonderful.
We don't even know why or how, but it didn't happen. Yeah.
We got us out of the house.
It got us out of the house.
I hope you haven't kept that up. That's a very bad thing.
We do.
Oh my God!
You do it almost every day, right?
We do it almost every day.
Yeah, you read each other. I mean, that's
incredible.
why it's so easy to get new work from you.
That's
What did
right.
you do today?
Like she says, can you do it? I go, yeah, when do you want it? 3 o'clock. Richard, come we have to do it.
That's funny.
It's true, though. That's how they happen.
What's the name of that young composer? She's absolutely brilliant. She won the Pulitzer in 2013. She was part of Roomful of Teeth. Nobody. What?
You know, Google.
Oh.
Somebody can Google for me now.
Yeah.
Roomful of Teeth, Pulitzer 2013.
Okay.
Because you would love her work, and she did she's very Bach influenced, and did an album for quartet, string quartet.
Caroline
and then she just did
Shaw.
an album of songs. What?
Caroline Shaw.
Caroline Shaw, yes.
Yeah.
Fabulous, unbelievable,
Wonderful.
really great.
Yeah.
And we'll feed your feminist vibe too, because she's very into that. Then I was gonna. Page 185. There's a very funny thing about sex. Let's get right to the funny thing about sex. It's more than funny, though. Sex, on the other hand, is right here and right
Oh, I
now.
was going to read that part. Yeah, go ahead, you read it. Yeah.
Oh,
Sex is like Blue Jay A tricking Blue Jay B into dropping that pumpkin seed so Blue Jay A can snap it up and fly away. In the bathtub, I was thinking about a man I took one look at years ago and knew I was finished. He wasn't the kind of man used to arousing this reaction. And I think when he saw he had become an object of such obvious desire, it was comic and poignant, and he couldn't turn away. I could be wrong. I smile when people think I know what I want. I'm not the kind who can picture the dead animal down the road that would make a nice filling for a sandwich if only you could walk over and hack off the meat. I took the apartment for sex. The city was sex. I thought if you felt an impulse and you were a female human, you should do what a man would do, which is what a dog would do without foreseeing the consequences. I thought I should learn all I could learn about sex for no reason other than I was curious. So there was nothing to stop me. I lived in the apartment alone all those years. Solitude is sex. People would stay over, but they didn't live there. I thought, you could put that on Facebook and be like, what do you mean by what you say?
What would they say? What would they say on Facebook?
Are you
I'd say, what do you mean?
Okay.
Then they would pick any words out of here, like including other than, you know? You know, like Mary McCarthy said, every word was a lie, including and thee.
Yeah.
They wouldn't get any words in here, including and thee.
I delete them. I just keep the people I like talking to.
But, I mean, I was so, like,
She's not joking.
I don't know, I'm getting very nostalgic and sentimental
That's okay.
for, like, real life.
It's somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't feel nostalgic or sentimental.
You know, I know. That's another great thing
yeah.
about the book, actually. There isn't a shred, not a drop.
Well, I was going to read the part about leaving the apartment. Shall I read that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's part
I think
of
that's very important
that's
to
part of
where
the-
we are in this book, this
Right.
situation of this book.
Right,
actually.
because, and actually part of what you read was one of the things that I was going to read, but I'll skip over that part. So I'll start with this. There's a couple of little chunks of this. It's not in the order in which, I'm going to read it out of the order in which it might be in the book. But anyway, this is one little chunk. The other day I decided to give up my apartment in Manhattan. Manhattan is where I was born and have lived most of my life. If I don't live there again, well, okay. Becoming a person who does not live in New York City is like waiting for the buzzer to ring before a date. When you dance around to Jimmy Cliff singing, the harder they come, the harder they fall. You dance around because you can see the night unfold and you have gotten dressed too early. When I clean out a place, I become lighter. Becoming lighter, I add to the time I have left. Who would not be happy sitting on the floor of a room you will never see again, tearing a life to shreds? Okay, then you skip. Then this happens too. Oh, that's the one that you read. Okay, so I'll skip that. Oh wait, this comes before. Oh yeah, this comes right before the thing about the blue jay. Okay. This morning in the bathtub, I was thinking about sex in the sense of why not follow an impulse? The nature of sex is something independent of language. With language, we conjure things that are not here and not now, things postponed and imagined. Language creates images in the mind. Why would you need images in the mind? In one theory of the origin of language, our primate ancestors needed to cooperate with members of different troops to fend off larger predators while they hacked off meat from a dead carcass in the woods down the road. They would need to imagine food not here and not now to band together, and they would need combinations of sounds and gestures they all understood that signified dead animal and down the road. And then sex, on the other hand, and all of the stuff that Vince just read. And then the thing about, yes, and so it ends there. And then I'll read something else then, I guess. In the apartment the other day, the art gone, the rugs gone, some of the smaller furniture gone. It's already no longer where I ever lived. It looks like the set for a play that is yet to be built, props strewn about for scenes that are disappearing as objects are packed into boxes. The way I live in the past is to make the same mistakes I have always made. The apartment looks like an archaeological site without a history of importance. Not because nothing happened there, but because whatever happened there happened to someone who cared. Time feels sped up, as if there is all the time in the world to do nothing important. It was always just living I was doing. And then, oh well, I'll just add this little thing that I'll throw this in. And then let's see where we are. Okay, this is just another paragraph in the same section. The number of cartoons in the New Yorker I have ever found amusing is 0. In the latest episode of The Morning Show, when Holland Taylor says with pride that she is a cockroach and will still be standing when everyone else at the TV network is a shriveled husk, I was reminded of the giant water bugs I could never banish from my apartment on Charles Street, and I could still hear their carapaces scraping the wide plank floors as they scuttled from the living room to the kitchen. When you are awake in the middle of the night, time stretches out in both directions, pulled thin at the edges without breaking, like pizza dough, and that's the thrill of solitude. In photographs of Samuel Beckett, no matter what he's wearing, his chic is to look like the chic is accidental. That's that section.
There's so much and this has been an interesting phenomenon that I've noticed since I was a young wannabe writer. There's so much in those pieces that you read that are actual commentary on the actual book that you handed us.
I'm afraid you're right.
And I love to find those when I find them. And sometimes in my own work I find them and I realize they're telling me exactly how bad and what's wrong, with what I've done. But that idea of like the chic of not, of not knowing or caring.
Did you ever see a picture of Samuel Beckett where he doesn't look amazing? I mean, there's just isn't one.
I have one over my desk.
Like he carries something and it looks great and like.
I have one over my desk that my first wife worked in the picture collection at Time Life, which no longer exists. It was the greatest picture collection outside and the largest catalog picture collection and the largest except for the Library of Congress. And they had a number of prints which were not. They would deaccession the prints because they got too many and they had the negatives. So this is Beckett in a flower market, and he had a basket with little roses along the side of it, and he's got flowers, and he's shopping for flowers. And he has a look on his face that I've never seen on his face in any other picture. Beckett is,
He's gorgeous.
Yeah, but he also looks like a crow.
He does look like a crow. The crows are really interesting.
But yes, Beckett, and there were a number of places there that do that, and that's another delight. I mean, just as if you're reading the book and you come to the section I talked about before, you don't have to see all that structure. You're just taking it in. You're feeling. It's just like being in the ocean. You're perceiving the waves and the buoyancy and the salt and the temperature. You don't have to analyze it all. But when you stop to analyze it all, it's very gratifying.
That's great. Thank you.
So anyway, I and the whole book is like that. It's just so rich.
Yeah.
Which is a great question. Is the whole book like that? Is it really rich?
Not for me to say. You might very well think so, as Francis Urquhart says in what's that show that we watched House of Cards. Yeah, no, the original English House of Cards.
Oh yes.
You might very well think
Yes.
so, but I couldn't possibly say.
As he's about to murder.
Didn't somebody get thrown off the
Yes,
the
she
roof
does.
of the
She does.
Parliament?
Maddie, oh, Daddy. Yeah.
I found it a little hard to believe. I found the second one hard to believe too.
Yeah.
And now things come around. Kevin Spacey's in England
Yeah.
facing charges.
Oh wow.
Oops.
Are you looking for us?
Oh sure. I think I had one word that I could do. I think the last one was teeny tiny. What was the what about the landlord one?
I must comment on something before I forget. It's
Yeah.
very interesting to see, like you're such a feminist, and to see you framed against this shelf of all these men from district peering down.
Yeah,
I like the Richard Nixon right over there. Next to
Marx, George Marshall.
And Hitler.
That's
Well,
great.
Yeah.
Good eye.
Rasputin.
There's Putin's face.
Oh,
we gotta get some photos.
There he is.
Well, they're recording it. Yeah.
The evil.
I didn't want to.
I can't believe that Hitler is right behind your head.
That's terrible. Turn it
Yes.
around. Turn the book around.
He's always looking down.
Tesla.
Oh yes, that's true.
It's not censorship, it's just intelligence.
Well, here's the thing about the apartment. Oh, I can read you like when I first came to the apartment. There is a section in that about that.
Who does?
I was going to ask you about your whole career.
We can talk
Right all
about
about
that.
You guys got to ask me.
Don't be silly. Where was that thing about taking the apartment? Oh, maybe it was this. Oh yeah. I think I forgot to read this part. Okay. Anyway, I'll read this. In 1978, when I moved to my apartment, I was with my dog and gardener, the artist. My intention was not to die. That's it. Other than that, I didn't think far ahead. The rent was $290. I knew a woman who liked me, then turned the opposite, then liked me again. It's the story of my life. Aside. Moving into the apartment of, she was moving into the apartment of her boyfriend and said I could have her place. It was on the Upper West Side. I didn't think the Upper West Side was where I should be. In those days, I said okay to all sorts of things I thought were fleeting, and that became marriages. In this type of building, there was a thin rat with a greasy look you had to slip money to in order to get the lease. You would slip 1 month's rent into his outstretched palm under the table, as the saying goes, and under an actual table if memory serves. Before moving to this apartment, I had been living in a rental house in East Hampton where I met Gardner. We rented a truck for the move, and the truck got a flat tire on the Long Island Expressway. It was raining. I was driving the truck. How is this possible? Someone fixed the tire. It was a time in life when these things happened. If it happened now, would I write about it differently? Anyway, just a little other thing about the apartment.
I forgot to open the floor to questions.
Oh, is it time? Did you want us to? Okay, should we do that?
Yes.
Let's do that. Okay.
I think there are people here who are
Yes.
bursting at the seams.
Yes. Yeah, anybody. Yes.
When I read your book, which is amazing, I underline almost every page, I find, oh my God, it brings back memories, and this is my life experience to a degree.
Yes.
But have you talked to young people who've read it? Do you think young women should use this as a guide to live?
Well, Karis is
And
read it.
Noelle and Karis have both read it a lot in the proofing stage.
Karis, what do you think?
It's a blueprint, baby.
No.
I mean, I
Look
just
at
feel
her.
like a sense of like freedom of expression in it that I find really inspiring. Like there's just like a brave word about saying what you want to say.
Do you think you can feel that freedom in yourself?
I feel like I don't feel it a lot, but I'm like working towards it.
But why not? I don't want to put you on the
That's, like,
spot,
such
but
a
it's
huge
really interesting. What?
That's such a huge question.
Yes.
But I mean, I do think that, I mean, maybe it's
That's
a
a really
cliched
important
answer,
question.
but, you know, Facebook, like social media,
It makes you feel like you have to, toe the line or something
constantly
like
monitor.
that.
myself.
Constantly monitoring. That's so
This is
interesting.
something I went through with my students every year when I was teaching. I said, you're free. You're never going to be free like this the rest of your life. You know? And
But you don't feel free.
you don't, and they didn't feel free in the least.
How do you think you can get more free? What would help you?
Money.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Money is
Really?
yeah, money is a big part of it, I'm
I
sure.
mean,
Why?
when we
Why
felt
money?
free,
Exactly.
life was cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wait,
because it's just so hard to get by, you know.
Well, the issue has been that Laurie is often described as brave.
Ugh, no.
That term is
That
used
means,
a lot.
okay, when people call you brave, that means I would never do that.
That looks good on you, I wouldn't wear it.
Right.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah. No,
Right.
Like that. Go away. Yeah.
But the fact is that something it is meant as a compliment,
I know.
and
but
something significant
No.
is happening there. It is.
What do you think is happening?
It's the
I think you don't self-censor.
Right.
Didn't we talk about this? Was it another event or was it just our life? I can't remember which was which. But you said you don't have. Oh, I think it was something I wrote. It may be in the a piece that we did together, where you said you don't know what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Therefore, you know.
Yeah.
Right. Something like you don't know what the
You're
bound-
uncivilized in that sense.
Right. Uncivilized.
Yeah, but I don't believe that. I believe you did know what you were supposed to do, but you chose not to.
Not really,
Uh-huh.
honestly.
That's
You're
the
dealing
crux
with more
of this issue.
No, listen. I'll tell you something that's interesting.
Like maybe you didn't choose it consciously, but you were just like, "Oh, this looks interesting," or "That
no,
looks."
it's all desire for me, and nothing stopped me. See, that's the difference. You know, there wasn't a religious regime that said, "Okay, now you're going to."
Well, that's what I'm saying. But you followed your desire.
But nothing stopped me. No, but most people get stopped by following their desires.
Absolutely, 100%. Most people
was in a crevice, post-war prosperity.
Yeah.
Nobody cares what happens to girls, but yet at the same time, so they're free. And my dad said, "Do you want to go to this nice school?" Okay, sure. Like whatever. It was definitely enabled. Money helped, but to get to freedom, but it could have been stopped if I had lived in another culture, another society.
That's what I'm saying.
Only
Given
in my generation
that
were
time.
the first time women could live like men and not get killed for it and not be escorted and chaperoned around, with men. But there was something about, so I wrote this piece about being a cater waiter at the Gala for Penn, the writers' organization I'm a member of.
That's a good
And,
idea.
It's not free.
Well, the thing is, when I arrived at the party, which was at the New York State Theater in Lincoln Center, the captain said, who's an opera singer, said, "I would never do a party at the Met. So you don't have to be out here and do this if you don't want to. You can just work behind the folding things and whatever." But I knew, as a writer, I had to do it, of course. I had to cater as a waiter the big gala for Penn. So I wrote this piece, and it was published, and people liked it. It's not a good piece for many reasons, but it was as good as I could do at the time. I met Richard, and he read it, and at the end there's a coda, and I still keep running, even after the Penn Gala, I run into people. And they don't know what to do. They're afraid that they can't talk to me. And I said to Richard, I think that they're feeling scared that they'll be infected by failure. They think they'll be contaminated by the specter of failure. He said, "No, Schmendrick," although he doesn't speak Yiddish. He said in his English way, "No, Schmendrick, it wasn't about failure. It was simpler than that. You were the fork in the wrong place at the table. They just didn't know what to do with you." He was right. He was absolutely right. Nothing to do with failure, because the same people were not, awkward or difficult outside of, these conversations. Yeah. But anyway, the thing is that I didn't understand that there are these boundaries and these social regulations and these frameworks, as well as other people understand them. And therefore, yeah, go ahead. Francis, yeah.
Well, yes. So people have mentioned the beautiful spaciousness of the absence of nostalgia and sentiment. And for me, I experienced your writing with another form of meta, which is all of these sort of going to the world and doing and just making your choices from desire and from here.
Yeah.
and then writing about it in a considered way, absent of another thing that gives space to us, which is rancor.
Yes.
Just bitterness.
Yes.
Rancor. And it's like,
all the rancor that I actually
like,
feel cannot be in the writing.
There's so much. It's so that's another.
And no self-justification.
And you mentioned
And
the
comedy
ocean,
instead.
and that sort of gives me the sense of being in this vast ocean.
Aww.
Yeah, the
And I
big
appreciated
freedom.
your image of the rhythm of being
Yeah.
carried along in the swells of the rhythm of your writing.
Thank you so much. Spalding Ray has been a huge influence on me.
Yeah, it's very similar.
You know, as a writer, as a practitioner, in terms of how he created pieces in this experimental form with, you know, little texts and then rearranging them and seeing finally, after many, sometimes hundreds of performances, how he would then set it into a monologue that would then become, you know, Swimming to Cambodia, or, you know, or the other ones, or, you know, or Grey's Anatomy, etc. And yeah, who has influenced you? Let's talk about influence. I have lots of influences.
My early influences were debilitating.
Oh, interesting. Why? Oh, that thing about men and like ancestor thing? What's it called?
No.
The anxiety of influence?
No, it was
Bloom or
my early
somebody?
influences
Yeah,
were
Bloom,
Joseph Conrad and Henry James. Now
Oh
you
my
try and write
gosh.
with those people.
Never. Not a chance.
I mean, and Flannery O'Connor.
Oh, Flannery's good.
Yeah, she's very
Yeah.
good. She was somewhat liberating, which is hard to imagine.
Well, language-wise, I can see it.
Yeah. I mean, after you've been buried in Conrad, she loved Conrad and James too. It turned
What's
out.
not to like, really? Yeah.
And then as I went along, you know, my biggest influences were, in terms of prose style, the people, the mid-20th century absolute clarity people. George Orwell, Mary McCarthy, Edmund Wilson.
Totally. Great.
You know, this kind of prose that just, there's absolute
Orwell
clarity.
fucking blows your mind. Whatever, I mean, he's such a great sentence maker.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I mean,
It's amazing.
he's
So
fucking brilliant.
those were my, I had more influences on my prose style than I had on like my imaginative, you know, worldview,
Yeah.
which I had to sort of carve out myself between sort of Catholicism and anger.
Yeah. Oh. Other thoughts people have? You know, questions or comments or your own writing practices?
I have one.
Yes.
You're in the book consistently. The last sentences are just mind-bending.
Yeah,
Now,
she
my
jumps,
question is,
she jumps like a frog out of
I know
the
you're
pond.
very in touch with your craft. Do you have that sentence earlier?
Never.
It just
I never pre-write. It's always action painting, action writing. I only write when I write. There's no garden. I'm not gardening. I'm just with the flowers, and they're like, "What's that bug doing on that leaf? Get off!" Yeah, that's it. I'm just like in the leaf with the bug. When it's the words, then it's just the words. I do really think a lot about the craft-informed issues that have emerged from teaching. I never understood what I was doing technically before I started to teach. And then I had to kind of break it down, because if you're teaching somebody, I didn't even think it was possible to teach people how to write, but it's totally possible to give people a framework where they can become a better writer with certain guidelines. Yeah, it's really true, and it's thrilling because
and people who deny it's possible annoy the crap out of me.
yeah, because they're not concrete enough and they don't want to tell their secrets, but I do. I will always tell the smoke and mirrors. Like, if you want to do that and you want to do that, oh, well, do that and then do that. But don't do that. You know, it's very much like, working with, I'm very proud to say, Michael Tolkien, who's a screenwriter and a filmmaker. And he's in this workshop that I'm in the process of doing with Richard, and I said to him, let's all try a Michael Tolkien piece. So I called him up and said, give me the recipe. Like, what's it, you know, what goes in a Michael Tolkien piece? And he wrote me back 5 ingredients. And so everyone has to go and try to do a Michael Tolkien piece. But Richard and I started breaking that stuff down. Not only, well, I started breaking it down in my own writing, but when I started to teach. But then when we got together, we started to we would read a book and we would decide, like when I read Edouard Levé, when I read Auto Portrait, oh my God, I was like, this is like, whoa, I don't know what's happening here, but we got to try it. So we tried to do a Levé piece, and that turned into, for me, a piece that was published in Fence, and then I started to, like that little paragraph I read that was really a list, you know, like the New Yorker, and you know, it ends with the Beckett, but then there's something about a TV show and Holland Taylor. You know, it's just a list of stuff. But that's what Levé does. Levé did this whole book called Auto Portrait, in which it's like Joe Brainerd, you know, like, what was Joe Brainerd's first sentence in every sentence? I remember, yeah. Mm-hmm. So Joe Brainerd is one of these people who's really instructive. Lists are incredible. I mean, if you are writers, and I know a lot of you out there are, lists are great because you can create narrative without plot, because the Homo sapien brain will just make a story out of things in a line. But to come back to what you asked, you know, originally, I really think while I'm drafting the very first time writing in my notebook, is this the best word in that moment? I try to adjust at the same time as give myself the freedom to just let the thoughts come. But if they just come, it will revert back to bad writing, in my case. And by bad writing, I mean writing about me rather than for the reader. I'm always writing for the reader. What is in it for them? What are they going to get out of this? Not what am I going to show them to get off by showing them. And so one of the things that I learned, and I had to learn this really the hard way for myself, was don't use the reader to excite them. But you can't excite yourself and excite them. You cannot. You absolutely cannot. It's one or the other. In order to excite them, you have to show them a world they can enter as if the world is about them. And that's where all the tricks of the trade come in.
Can you make yourself cry and get them to cry?
No, it's the opposite. Never say something hurts if you're shot by a bullet. You just describe how long it took for the blood to move from point A to point B, or when you go through the hole.
No, I don't mean cry on the page. I'm saying, can you, sitting at your desk, be...
Never. No. No, there's no crying.
I need to introduce you to some Irish writers.
No, I'm just thinking about it. How to trick them into liking this. That's
I think in a Facebook post I've written the duty of the writer is to seduce the reader to read the next sentence. Yes. Something at a long blurb about some of your tips on writing, or the things that people do wrong. They make it all about himself, and and you're such an observer. Like, you know, I know, Richard, you think that people call you fearless because no, you are fearless because I think a lot of people live vicariously through you. They want to say it, but they cannot, and Laurie's going to say that, and it's like, in the sense that's great that you say it, because people sometimes feel stifled to express certain things, and when they see you, I think they feel rather encouraged rather than, it's not that they think, oh, let her say it, you're not going to say it. So
but when we were young, nobody was afraid of anything.
Yeah, and now you can get canceled.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that for a second. I know that when you went to Barnard or when you were getting your PhD, you didn't get it because some male professor kind of like
Stephen Marcus,
tamped you down. Like there were all sorts of things.
No, it wasn't. It was in academia, it was not a place for me to be. That's why I went to the Village Voice.
Right. So maybe it was wonderful, but I'm just saying there can't have been moments that maybe we're using like weird. This is a real generalization, and that's so not you. So.
No, you're right.
You were afraid of the other side of Morningside Park.
I don't know about that. No, you're right. There were restrictive environments, but you understood to get yourself out of them, right? And to go more towards the freedom.
Yeah.
But even in the women's movement, there wasn't a lot of freedom.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. There wasn't. There wasn't lots of rules.
Oh, lots of rules.
I'm in your generation, and we were rebellious as hell.
Yeah.
And that's what you said before. No one was stopping us. There was lip service, but I had no fears. I mean, I was afraid of everything, but I had no social fears.
Yeah, and you didn't lose a job, right?
Well, I was an ice cream man. It was kind of hard to lose that.
You were an ice cream man?
I sure was.
That's cool.
I was a successful ice cream man.
That's awesome. That's a
Wait for
a good
Greg.
life.
People still know me as Wait for Greg. My name is not Greg.
We should.
Is it time?
Yes.
$5 bag. Thank you guys. This was
Thank
so
you.
fun.